Some people believe that having status, money, or a fancy membership card gives them the right to treat everyone around them badly, and for a long time, that kind of behavior actually works. Staff members are forced to smile, managers try to keep the peace, and complaints get ignored because the guest spends money or has loyalty status. But every once in a while, those people run into someone who knows the rules better than they do. That's exactly what happened the night an entitled hotel guest made two of my coworkers cry, because what he didn't realize was that his own arrogance was about to destroy the one thing he valued most, his job. I had been working at that hotel for a little over 2 years when everything happened. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was stable, and the team had become like a second family to me. Most of us genuinely cared about doing our jobs well and making sure guests had a good stay. About a year after I started, the hotel switched franchises to a different chain, which meant we all had to go through a full retraining process to learn the new systems, policies, and rules. Most people hated that kind of corporate training, but I actually paid attention. Hidden inside those long presentations were some very interesting rules about employee conduct, rewards programs, and discount stays. Most people ignored that information, but I didn't. And 2 years later, that knowledge turned out to be very useful. The night the story begins, I was scheduled to work the evening shift from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. I walked through the front doors expecting a normal shift, but the moment I stepped behind the front desk, I knew something was wrong. 2 of my coworkers from the morning shift were standing there, and both of them looked like they had been crying for hours. Their makeup was smeared, their eyes were red, and they looked completely emotionally drained. These weren't people who got upset easily either. They were both fresh out of high school, incredibly sweet, and the kind of employees who genuinely loved helping guests. Seeing them like that made my stomach drop. Our front desk manager was standing nearby, looking just as frustrated. "What happened?" I asked. The manager let out a long sigh before answering. "We've got a guest from hell." Apparently, the man staying in one of the rooms was a top-tier rewards member in the hotel chain, the highest level possible. The kind of status that makes some guests believe they're royalty. According to my manager, this guy had been terrorizing the staff all day. He demanded free upgrades, free food, free amenities, basically free everything. And every time someone told him no, he exploded. He had already called multiple departments complaining about imaginary problems. Housekeeping, maintenance, room service. Everyone had dealt with him. But the worst part happened just before I arrived. He had come down to the front desk and started screaming at the 2 girls working the morning shift. Not complaining, not arguing. Screaming loudly enough that other guests in the lobby could hear it. He didn't stop until both of them were standing there in tears. Listening to that story made my blood start to boil. Nobody deserves to be treated like that just for doing their job. But while my manager was explaining everything, I had already started looking up the guest's reservation in the system. That's when I noticed something interesting, something that made me smile. A big smile. The kind of smile that makes managers nervous. Next to his reservation details was a small note showing how he had booked the room. And that's when everything clicked. I looked back at my manager. "Did you notice he's staying here on an employee discount?" I asked. The manager shrugged. "Yeah. So what?" That was the moment I realized the guest had made a very big mistake. When hotel employees travel, they often get special discounts to stay at other properties within the same chain. But those discounts come with rules, very strict rules. One of the most important ones is that employees using the discount must behave professionally and respectfully. Any misconduct can lead to the discount being revoked or even disciplinary action from their employer. Sometimes it can even lead to termination. I reached into the reservation folder and pulled out the printed employee discount form the guest had submitted when he checked in, then pointed directly to the fine print. Right there in black and white, it clearly said that failure to behave respectfully towards staff could lead to losing the privilege permanently. I handed the form to my manager. "You should call his hotel," I said calmly. For a moment, my manager just stared at me. Then slowly, a smile started spreading across his face. The kind of smile that meant revenge was about to begin. A few minutes later, we had the phone number for the hotel where the guest worked. I dialed the number and handed the phone to my manager once someone picked up. "Ask for the GM," I said. The call lasted about 10 minutes, but when my manager hung up, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. "Oh yeah," he said. "His GM is furious." Apparently, when my manager described everything this guest had done, the screaming, the harassment, the abuse, the man on the other end of the phone had gone completely silent before starting to ask very specific questions. The kind of questions you ask when someone working for you is about to be in very serious trouble. Before ending the call, the GM even gave my manager his personal cell phone number and told him to call immediately if the guest caused any more problems. At that point, the situation was already satisfying, but I wasn't finished yet. While my manager had gotten his revenge, it was time for mine. I picked up the phone again and dialed another number. This time, the hotel chain's rewards program customer service line. The representative answered politely and asked how she could help. "I'd like to report a rewards member," I said calmly. There was a short pause before she asked why. I explained that the guest was staying under an employee discount while also using his rewards membership account. Her reaction was immediate. "He can't do that," she said. Exactly. Employees using discounted stays were not allowed to collect rewards points at the same time. It was another rule buried deep in the fine print. I gave her the reservation number and the rewards account number, then suggested she might want to check his stay history, because I had a feeling he had been doing this for a long time. She said she would open an investigation ticket, and after I thanked her and hung up, I quietly removed his rewards number from the reservation. My manager had been watching the whole thing with a huge grin. "That was amazing," he said. But I still wasn't finished. Next came the part that made the entire hotel happy. I created a new room key for the guest, but this one didn't have concierge lounge access anymore. Then I walked through the entire building, visiting every department: housekeeping, maintenance, room service, the concierge desk. And every time I mentioned the guest's name, the reaction was the same. "Oh, great! What did he do now?" When I told them he was no longer a rewards member and no longer allowed in the concierge lounge, the mood instantly shifted. People started smiling, and some even laughed. The concierge staff were especially thrilled because that guest had apparently been one of their biggest headaches all day. By the time I finished making the rounds, the entire hotel staff knew the situation had changed, and suddenly the entitled guest didn't have the same power anymore. Later that night, something interesting happened. The guest came down to the front desk again, but this time he wasn't yelling or screaming or demanding free upgrades. Instead, he approached the desk quietly, almost nervously. My room key isn't working," he said politely. I gave him the biggest, fakest customer service smile I could possibly manage. "Oh, I'm so sorry about that," I replied sweetly. "Let me make you a new one." I handed him the replacement key, and he thanked me before walking away without any shouting, insults, or attitude. It seemed that somewhere along the way, someone had already had a very serious conversation with him. The next day, curiosity got the better of me, so I checked his rewards account in the system. The status said, "Suspended." A week later, I checked again, and this time the system returned a different message. "Account number not found. Completely gone. Deleted." That meant the investigation had probably uncovered exactly what we suspected. He had been abusing the system for a long time, and eventually his own arrogance caught up with him. Looking back on that night, I still remember the look on my coworkers' faces when they hugged me before going home. Those two girls had walked into work expecting a normal shift, and instead, they had spent the day being screamed at by someone who thought he was untouchable. But by the end of the night, that same person had lost his rewards account, his privileges, and possibly even his job, all because he believed being rude to hotel staff didn't have consequences. The truth is, most people in service jobs know the rules better than the guests, and sometimes all it takes is one person willing to enforce them. Because karma doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it just shows up quietly in the fine print of a policy someone thought nobody would ever read.